All right, today we're cracking open what's often called the black box of medical research. We're going to explore why data transparency isn't just a nice idea anymore. Nope, it's absolutely critical for building trust and, speeding up breakthroughs, especially in this age of crazy misinformation. So let me start with this, a pretty big question. What if the future of medical innovation, the next big breakthrough, depends less on some brand new discovery and more on, on how openly we share what we already know? Think about that for a second. That very question is really at the core of what's happening in clinical research right now.
But before we get to the good stuff, we've got to understand the problem we're facing. I mean, it's no secret that we're swimming in misinformation, right? And because of that, public trust in science can be, pretty shaky. When all the research happens behind closed doors in that black box, it's just so easy for suspicion to creep in. Like, imagine a new drug gets approved, but nobody can see the data it's based on. You'd probably start to wonder, hey, is this stuff really safe? Does it actually work? And you'd be right to ask.
And that leads us right to the solution, what's being called a transparency revolution. And look, this is way more than just being open for the sake of being open. We're talking about a massive shift in how science is done and how we talk about it. The whole point is to make the evidence visible, verifiable, and, shared with real integrity.
Okay, so what are we really talking about when we say data transparency? It is so much more than just, throwing a PDF of the results online. The best way to think about it is like building a glass house for science. Every single step, from how the study was designed in the first place, all the way to the final number crunching, it's all out there for the world to see and scrutinize.
And the benefits here are huge. They really rest on 4 key pillars. First up, trust. Transparency builds trust with everyone, participants, regulators, the public, and you absolutely need that trust. Second, credibility. When other scientists can check your work, it makes the findings so much more believable. Third, you get way more collaboration. It stops researchers from reinventing the wheel and really speeds things up. And finally, and this is a big one, it reinforces ethics. It's all about making sure patient data is handled respectfully and responsibly.
Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but how is it actually happening? Well, the answer really comes down to the digital revolution. So let's dive into the tools and the rules that are powering this whole new era of accountability in research.
Yeah, technology is the real engine driving this whole thing. You got stuff like electronic data capture systems, or EDC, which basically collect data with amazing accuracy, cutting down on human error. Then there are public registries like ClinicalTrials.gov. Anyone, and I mean anyone, can go there and look up a study's details. And on top of that, you have these incredible data sharing platforms like Vivly, where researchers can securely access data from lots of different studies. It's really democratizing science, making it more open and keeping everyone honest.
But look, it's not all about the cool tech. Policy is just as important. In the US, for example, the FDA makes it a rule. You have to register your clinical trial and you have to report the results. Over in Europe, the EMA takes it even further. They actually publish clinical data from drug approval submissions. And then you have big picture rules like GDPR, which make sure that all this sharing is done safely and responsibly. These regulations are basically creating a new rule book for research.
But, of course, it's not all smooth sailing. I mean, nothing this important ever is, right? Getting to true transparency means we have to tackle some really tough challenges. It's a delicate balancing act. How do you share all this valuable data without accidentally revealing who the participants are? You're constantly weighing the public's need to know against the person's fundamental right to privacy.
Okay, so on one side of the scale, you have the ultimate goal, the dream, right? A world where all scientific data is shared. Imagine it. Researchers could build on each other's work, stop wasting time on stuff that's already been done, and get new treatments to the people who need them so much faster. But then, on the other side, you have the reality. And it's a huge one. Our absolute ethical duty to protect the privacy of the people who volunteer for these studies. We have to remember, these aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They're real people who've trusted the system with their most personal information.
So yeah, the hurdles are real. I mean, think about it. How do you truly anonymize data when AI can piece things together? How do you stop someone from taking a piece of data out of context and causing it total panic over nothing? And what about smaller research groups? They might not have the money or staff for this. Plus, every country has different rules. It's a lot to navigate.
This quote really just nails the core challenge, doesn't it? It's the guiding principle for this whole movement. The entire thing has to be built on this idea. We want openness, yes, but never by compromising our ethical duty to protect the people who make the research possible in the first place. All right, so we know the challenges. The big question is, where do we go from here? How do we actually build this open future and make transparency a reality, not just a nice idea? Well, there's a blueprint for that. Let's walk through it.
The path forward really boils down to 4 key strategies. First, we need strong data governance, clear rules of the road so everyone knows their role. Second, we have to embrace training and education, making sure every researcher understands their ethical and legal duties. Third, we need to build collaborative ecosystems where everyone, academia, industry, regulators work together. And fourth, and this is where it gets really cool, we need to harness emerging technologies.
And this is where things get really exciting. Think about blockchain, for instance. It's like a digital ledger that can't be tampered with. It tracks every change to the data so you always know it's legit. And then you have AI, which is like having a superpowered assistant. It can scan massive amounts of data to find inconsistencies, automate boring compliance checks, and even spot patterns that a human researcher would just never see.
So what's next? What's on the horizon? Well, a few things are becoming really clear. We're moving toward a future where patients have way more control over their own data. They're becoming active partners in research. We're also seeing this explosion of what's called real-world evidence. Data from our health records, our smartwatches. It gives a much richer picture of health. And we're seeing more decentralized trials that use tech to meet patients where they are, which is just fantastic for diversity and access.
So, what's the bottom line here? It's simple, really. Transparency isn't optional anymore. It's not a nice-to-have. It is the absolute foundation of scientific credibility. Without it, public trust crumbles, and the whole system is at risk.
And that brings us to one last thought, and it's for you. Think about it. Every time you go to the doctor, every bit of health data you create, it has the potential to help power the next huge medical breakthrough. So the real question for all of us is this: are we truly ready to build a system that's transparent enough and ethical enough to unlock the incredible potential hidden in that data for everyone's benefit?
All right, today we're cracking open what's often called